Welcome, friends of the show. We are back with another episode of the Ferris Wheel Serious Rock Talk podcast.
Ooh, all right.
A big thanks for your emails, suggestions, and your support on our social media platforms. Continue to email us at seriousrocktalk@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Listen to a new show every week. Just tune in each Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. New York City time on Cap City Beats, located at www.capcitybeats.ca. Okay, buckle up for some serious rock talk. So we are, gentlemen, back in the saddle once again. We had a nice, healthy discussion about classic rock. Man to the left of me, who is known for writing songs with Arlo Guthrie.
I am. You can get anything you want. Dr. Ian Clarke.
Alice's Diner.
At Alice's Restaurant, accepting Alice.
And the man to the right of me is no stranger to actually getting humanitarian awards, especially in Tibet, for preserving Quebec jazz albums.
Stephen Wheeler.
How was that trip with the Tibetan monks, Wheeler?
Cold.
Man.
At least there's no underwear change.
What did you guys have? It was like canned navy beans. That's what you guys were eating. Is that what it was?
Yeah,
Navy beans in a can.
It's basically gas heating.
I was going to say, you don't want to smoke around that.
No, there was a no smoking policy.
I was going to say, or an explosion policy.
So I believe today, Dr. Clarke, we're going to take
Yes.
a wild on the walk on the wild side or dark side. What is it?
Take a walk on the wild side.
Little Lou Reed.
Little Reed, ladies and gentlemen, incredibly, we've been doing this since, 1963. We haven't covered one of the most influential bands, the Velvet Underground. And I'm going to entitle this talk, More Influential Than Great? Possibly. Okay. So to begin, this is from Greg Cott, writing for the BBC, October 2014. And I quote, "When Lou Reed died a few weeks ago at age 71, I wrote an obituary asserting that Reed and his band, the Velvet Underground, influenced rock's future as much or more than any 60s band, including the Beatles. Please hold the outrage. There's no arguing the decades-long ubiquity of the Beatles, the extraordinary impact they had on not just music, but on the counterculture, and the way their generational peers thought, spoke, dressed, and cut their hair. But in strictly musical terms, the Velvets, Reed, John Cale, Sterling Morrison, Maureen Tucker, and later Doug Yule, were new rock's future, the band that launched a dozen musical subgenres and movements. The roots of underground and experimental music, indie, alternative, punk, post-punk, art punk, all snake back to the 4 Velvet Underground studio albums." Actually, I think they're wrong that they should have put 5. Anyway, we'll get to that. Unquote. Okay, thank you, BBC. Let's go for a few facts just to lay down with this group when it started and who comprised the membership. American rock band, of course, very New York City. Essentially, they were a guitar band, around from about 64 to 73, but that's debatable, like everything about this band. As mentioned in the intro, they're influenced by avant-garde art and modern literature. The principal members, Lou Reed, John Cale, Sterling Morrison, Maureen Tucker, Nico, whose name was Krista Pafkin, Angus MacLeese, I wonder where he's from, and Doug Yule. Thumbnail background on the two leaders of the band were Lou Reed, who was the son of an accountant, and he I know, it's incredible.
Son of a preacher man.
The only one I could ever. And he was a teenage member of a band called The Shades. What a 60s, The Shades. And he studied literature at Syracuse University, and he came under the influence of a well-known poet named Delmore Schwartz. John Cale, classically trained, born in Wales, came to the States in 1963 on a Leonard Bernstein scholarship, and he immediately got into the new vibe, the new age stuff. He joined a middle ensemble headed by a guy named Lamont Young, who's still alive. This is 1965. While working as a songwriter in a kind of a brill building setup, Reed formed a band called The Primitives, which included John Cale. That's important to remember. And they recorded a song of Reed's called The Ostrich, which I've never heard. He'd also written the song Heroin and Venus and Furs, which reflected his interest in graphic narrative realism of writers such as Raymond Chandler, right? The Big Sleep and all those, and Hubert Selby rather, who wrote Last Exit to Brooklyn. These are big, kind of noirish novels at the time. Together with Sterling Morrison, he was another Syracuse classmate of Reed, and a percussionist, MacLeese. With Reed on guitar and vocals and Cale on piano, viola, and bass, they formed a band. And that's the way it started. It took the name Velvet Underground from a paperback book about unconventional sex. By the way, our very own Stephen Wheeler will be discussing unconventional sex in an upcoming episode. I don't know if he's speaking from personal. Anyway, the band performed live soundtracks for experimental films. And drummer Maureen Tucker, who's still around, they had their first gig in December 1965, so I would mark that as the beginning of the Velvet Underground. They were seen in a Greenwich Village nightclub by a guy named Andy Warhol, who you might have heard of. Yeah, that guy. And he became their manager, which is probably an insane idea, their producer in a way, and their backer. He gave them lots of money. And he wanted them to perform with this German actress, Nico, who was I know she was in a Fellini movie, a few foreign films, a beautiful woman, and she couldn't really sing, but boy, she had presence. So they said, okay. So in 1966, they recorded The Velvet Underground and Nico, and it is a great album. It's one of the most important rock debuts. It's up there with The Doors' first album. It's a perfect album, and it launched them into immortality. And they spoke about stuff like drug use, sadomasochism, urban angst. You got to remember, this is 1966. It's a flower power, summer of love. All this stuff is just about to take off. And these guys in New York City are doing exactly the opposite. That's why they're such individualists. They just didn't care. They weren't putting flowers in their hair, okay? Another problem with the Velvet Underground, and it was a problem, is that they never had any money, and they had a personnel upheaval problem. It just kept going through people. Nico left in 1967, and she embarked on a solo career. She had an affair with Jim Morrison of The Doors. She had an album called Chelsea Girl, which is a good album. Chelsea Girls, I think, in 1968. And Reed, Cale, Morrison are on it. Jackson Browne, a 17-year-old Jackson Browne, is on it, writing songs. And another one called The Marble Index in 69, produced by John Cale, by the way. In 67, Reed fired Warhol as the group's manager. You just love this stuff. Cale was replaced by Doug Yule in 1968. Remember, he's the guy from Wales. Right after the release of their album White Light, White Heat, which is been called the first punk album. And that was it. In 1970, they had another great album called The Velvet Underground, called Loaded. And then Reed left in 1970. And somehow a version of the band, without any original members, limped into the early 1970s. So not really counting, I'm not counting bootlegs or anything like that or live albums. They really had 5 albums, essentially 4 of the. So The Velvet Underground, Nico, 67, White Light, White Heat, 68, The Velvet Underground, 69, and Loaded. Loaded's a great album, by the way.
Although is Loaded like the last Doors album where it's slightly off in terms of the original output, or?
And then they didn't really let up until the end. There's another one in 73 called Squeeze.
Oh yeah, that's the one I was thinking about.
No, don't think. Yeah. Even the guy who wrote the songs, Doug Yule, said, don't buy this album.
Okay.
I was thinking about when you said Andy Warhol, I was thinking about the banana, the one that he drew.
Yeah, you're right. It's if you have that original now, megabucks.
As soon as you mentioned Velvet Underground and Lou Reed, like it's 2 things. I think of Lou Reed, where he's kind of got like this like dominatrix look there.
Yeah, he's always into that. Yeah.
And one album cover, and then I always think of the Banana album, which I don't know what it's called.
That's it. With Nico, that's the first one.
Oh, it's called Nico?
Well, the Velvet Underground and Nico.
Oh, okay. So, and that was, I know Andy, you told me Andy Warhol drew the artwork for
he did the art. I didn't mention the good point. He did the cover. Like Andy Warhol's doing the cover of your album. It's pretty good. As solo artists, Reed and Cale brought a lot of that velvet kind of streetwise stuff into their own work. Reed had an overdue hit in 72 with the album Transformer, co-produced by David Bowie. I think Bowie did it with Mick Ronson. and it featured "Walking the Wild Side," which I remember coming out.
Is that the album that is like this on the cover?
I don't think it is.
He's all in
Oh, it
black.
is.
He's
Yeah,
like-
yeah,
it's
I
all
think
in
you're right.
black.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the only one I know. Like, I know who Lou Reed is, and I'm glad he's in the Hall twice.
Right, he
Once
would be.
on his own, and once with...
His wife. He's dead. His wife helped induct him. Laurie Anderson brought him in, and then Lou established himself as the godfather of punk rock, and he had an album called Berlin '73, Metal Machine Music, which is unlistenable in '75, and a concept album, New York of all things, in '89. John Cale produced Iggy and the Stooges, Brian Eno, Patti Smith. He's done a lot. In '89, Cale and Reed got together to write a record called Songs for Drella. Drella was a nickname for Andy Warhol. Morrison and Tucker, as I said, left the group in '71. Morrison studied medieval literature and then worked as a tugboat captain. You got to love these guys. And Tucker, she raised a family. They're such unpretentious people. Okay, those are the facts that have underground. Now, in this episode of the Ferris Wheel Serious Rock Talk podcast, we're talking about influence, not instrumental prowess. This isn't about like Jeff Beck, and it's certainly not amazing vocals, because people who love rock generally love rock genealogy. That begat that. It's almost biblical. It enriches the sound if you know where it comes from. It makes it all seem better for some reason. Musicologists roundly cite the Velvet Underground as one of the most influential bands in rock history. That's just it. In '96, they went into the Hall of Fame. We have some issues about the Hall of Fame, don't we? Like,
Yes,
we
sir.
just, you know what? Let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah, we do have... It's it's time for Kennedy's Corner.
Okay.
Welcome to Kennedy's Corner. Following the advice of a behavioral psychologist, Ferris Kennedy has created a forum to express his nightmares, his terror, and his love of rock music. Dr. Clarke and medicated Wheeler help with his therapy by answering questions, or just acting like they're interested.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
What is it? Where is it? Who's in it? And why does it anger some people and rock artists?
Why doesn't it blow up?
That's right. So, located on the shores of Lake Erie in northeast Ohio, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is not only the top tourist destination of Cleveland, Ohio, but its awards are considered a career-defining accomplishment for its inductees. Or were they? And when did they take that wrong left turn at Albuquerque? That's my question. So, it was created in 1983 in your favorite city of New York, Ian, by the head of the Atlantic Records, Ahmet Erdogan.
It's true.
This non-profit foundation is in charge of the induction process and organizing the annual ceremony. Again, non-profit. Keep those in mind.
In quotes, yeah.
In quotes. Obviously, the museum was opened in 1995, and it is a separate entity based in Cleveland, and it receives a portion of its funding from the foundation and provides the physical home of honored inductees. So for our fellow listeners up here in Canada, it's like the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
All
okay.
right. So there are 6 categories, and I looked into this. Their performer category, and this, since its inception of '86, whenever they started doing this, there has been about 246 inductees. They have another category called Early Influence, which again, from '86 to present, has 38 inductees. The non-performer, which is the Ahmet Erdogan Award, it goes from '86 to present and has 48 inductees. The new one here that I like is the Musical Excellence 2011 till present, has 12 inductees. So you got Leon Russell, Cosimo Matassa, Glyn Johns, Tom Dowd, the E Street Band, It Don't Come Easy for Ringo Starr, Nile Rodgers, Billy Preston, LL Cool J, Randy Rhoads, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and Judas Priest.
Wow.
All right?
Okay.
That
Weird.
is your musical excellence. Then they had the Sidemen category, which went from 2000 to 2009, has 15 inductees, which now are listed under the Musical Excellence Awards. But before they did that, you had Earl Palmer, the great Hal Blaine, James Jamerson, King Curtis, Scotty Moore, James Burton, Johnny Johnson, Chet Atkins, okay, some pretty good names, Benny Benjamin, Floyd Kramer, Steve Douglas, Little Walter, Bill Black, DJ Fontana, and Spooner Oldham. Okay.
Okay.
Any of those names sound familiar to you?
Oh,
Ian?
they all do.
Okay. So here's the one that really puzzled me the most is that you have the lifetime achievement. You think that should be an honor, right?
yeah,
sure.
So it went from 86 to 2005. And you mean to tell me...
Why do they keep cutting them out?
So you mean to tell me within 19 years you could only give that to 6 people? These are the names. John Hammond,
Yeah.
Nishui Ertgun,
Yeah.
Mo
His
Austin,
brother, by the way.
or Austin, how you want to pronounce
Mo
it.
Austin, yeah.
Jan Wenner,
No way.
yep, Frank Barcelona, and
Yeah.
Seymour Stein.
Oh,
That's it?
So Wenner gave himself an award.
So I said to myself,
And they gave the brother, Erdogan's brother,
of course
an
you
award.
gave him an award,
And
absolutely.
his brother award, too. Erdogan's...
So out of all these categories, the one that decided to end in '05 is a lifetime achievement.
No
Why?
kidding.
Why don't you keep this category? This category would be the highest honor after being inducted into Hall of Fame. It was only around for 19 years, and they were only able to honor 6 inductees. Very odd, don't you find? Where are some of the greats like Elvis, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, the Beatles, the Stones, Zeppelin, Dylan, Neil Young, and Jimi Hendrix? I just want to name a few.
Yeah.
Okay? Because, Bob Dylan's been inducted into Hall of Fame. Neil Young's been there twice. Okay?
Yeah.
So, the Beatles are there. The Stones are there.
They probably shut it down because...
Actually, they should use it in this, like the way the Oscars do it, in the sense that like the Oscars will make huge mistakes for decades, and then they'll say, like for example, Peter O'Toole or Hitchcock. Hitchcock never won an Oscar except for the Lifetime one. So it's a way to correct your mistakes at the very end. Usually.
Hey, listen, the Beatles won 1 Grammy, and that was
Exactly.
for Best Soundtrack. For
Yeah,
Let It
Foo
Be.
Fighters got their Grammy last year, and unfortunately, Taylor Hawkins wasn't alive to go to get it.
They panic.
So here, people ask me, well, Kennedy, do you have beef with the association? Not particularly, but what I find interesting is how they loosened their criteria and started to let in the strays. The artists that they're accepting in the once prestigious hall have really shy away from the original criteria. They are now making a popularity contest and not making it based on merit, or in some cases, I like to call it musical academia. You like that one, Ian?
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Right? There is no more rock or classic rock criteria. They are bringing country, rap, and hip hop into the mix. Both of these genres have their own museums, the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, respectively. Now, do some of these pioneers belong in Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Maybe depending if they crossed over, similar to like the Marshall Tucker Band, who started off as country and then transitioned into rock. Or like artists like Run DMC and Public Enemy, who actually crossed genre with rock and metal and helped these bands get their careers back on track, i.e. Aerosmith and Anthrax.
True.
Okay, Eminem and LL Cool J, who are lyrical geniuses in writing, which is a category of musical excellence, I'm okay with. And I'm also biased, okay, because I grew up listening to these guys. But so help me God, if you honor a mumble rap artist, I will get medieval on your hiney, okay? Now, here's where I have a certain quarrel of who's in and who's not. And for the record, the who is in, and it is merited. So let's just take a look. Let's go down from this year onwards. So who do they put in? They put in Carly Simon, Dolly Parton, really? Duran
I
Duran.
think that's an error.
Okay, Eminem, like I said, fine. Musical excellence. I'm going, if you're basing on his writing credibility, fine. But if you're saying, oh, well, he belongs in rock, well, no, and I'm sure he'll tell you the same thing.
Yeah, really.
Dolly Parton protested that she didn't want to be in it.
But then she went in.
Of course.
She's good.
She's good. Let's see, who finally got in? Lionel Richie got in. Pat Benatar.
Oh, come on.
Let's see, Judas Priest finally got in. It only took them, I don't know, since 68 onwards. Harry Belafonte. Interesting. Okay.
In the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes, sir. Carole King.
Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
Carole
'cause
King,
there, yeah.
Foo Fighters, I got no issues with.
Well, obviously.
The Go-Go's.
It's
Yes.
pop.
Jay-Z. That's rap.
That's just stupid.
Tina Turner.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm cool with that. Todd Rundgren. Finally, got
Sure.
in 2021 again.
a little late.
Okay. Billy Preston. LL Cool J. Randy Rhoads. Got the nap from him.
Yeah.
Kraftwerk. I'll give it to them.
I guess. Yeah.
Wheels, you don't like them, but Depeche Mode, they're in. Doobie Brothers made it in. 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Notorious B.I.G.
No, really?
Yeah. T-Rex, they finally made it.
Yeah, that's pressure.
Whitney Houston. The Cure.
Whitney's a real hard rocker. I'm glad she
yeah.
made it.
Def Leppard, great. Radiohead, and I know that they kind of,
They made everybody mad at them.
that's right. Stevie Nicks, Roxy Music, the
Yeah,
Zombies,
yeah,
Bon
that's
Jovi,
okay.
Cars, Dire Straits, fine. That's good.
When did the Zombies get in?
Zombies got in
Like
in
2019.
2019.
About 4 years ago.
And it was Susanna Hoffs that.
I know you
inducted
could
them.
look that one up on YouTube.
So you got Moody Blues. That's fine. I'm all right with that. ELO, Tupac. Okay.
Again, did you say there's a category for rap, or there's a rap? What do you want to call
Hall of
museum?
Fame.
Hall
Yes,
of Fame.
it's in New York, obviously based out of New York.
Oh,
and
they
it's
should just.
okay.
Did these clowns run that too, or do we know?
No, I think it's totally independent. I think it's actually done with a different foundation. But I'm just kind of listening.
Which Jay-Z probably owns.
Yeah, but like you see names like I find later on, I see they put NWA in, and I'm okay with that just because of what they started. But again, we're going on musical excellence of writing criteria.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm okay with that. 2015 was pretty good. Joan Jett, Lou Reed, Paul Butterfield. That's fine. Ringo, sure.
Sure, whatever. Yeah.
But I find things got weird pretty well after 2018. Things started getting weird. We started allowing other stuff in there that just doesn't really make sense.
Like what?
Well, where we started putting guys like B.I.G. and Whitney
Okay, yeah,
Houston.
they're trying to be hip. Yeah.
Trying to be hip. Like I guess they're trying to attract the younger audience.
Yeah.
I get it, but you can't shy away from what the actual criteria was.
Yeah.
So now I don't need to go through the whole list, but just so you know, the Beatles and the Stones are there. Okay, Queen is there.
Yeah.
Jeez.
David Bowie made it. Woody Guthrie, Les Paul, all those good guys.
Woody Guthrie's in there?
Yeah, Woody Guthrie got in
Nothing
1988.
Nothing to do with rock.
Neil
Okay.
Young inducted him. I want to induct Woody.
Well, I think
okay.
it's back then. It was because of people like Dylan and
Yeah, I think so. He's nothing to do with rock and roll.
So there's a bit of a snub list. Brian Adams is on the snub list for now.
How do you feel about that?
I'm very upset because they were saying the reason why he's not made it in is because he stopped producing with Jim Valance and went to Mutt Lange.
Oh, come
Really?
on.
And I said, really?
Really?
Last time I checked, Def Leppard is in the Hall of Fame, and it's courtesy
That's
to
right.
Mutt Lange. Yeah, the Offspring are knocking on the door, another Mutt Lange production, but I know that there's more than one Mutt Lange band that he produced that's probably in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
exactly.
For
AC/DC.
God's sake. Yeah, really.
Just to name another one, But here's a small little snub list, and I think, Ian, you're going to find this quite interesting. Okay, maybe not the B-52s, but the B-52s.
I have a big problem with that.
You do?
Not really. I guess. I'm a half-half.
Bad Company,
I think that's dumb.
Billy Idol,
I think listen, again, you don't have to like him, but he's a good rocker.
Black Flag, a little bit too political. I
Yeah,
think.
you need to be careful. Henry Rollins, right? Yeah, you got to be careful.
Blue Oyster Cult,
You should, just for
Brian
more
Eno.
cowbell. Pardon me?
Brian Eno was not in there.
For influence, you bring him in.
I'm okay with Cher not going in.
That could have been fun, though.
Connie Francis is on the snub list.
Yeah, Italian. She didn't make it, eh?
She's on the snub list.
Oh,
Dave Matthews Band.
I don't have a problem, but that's my personal. They should be considered anyway.
Dick Dale is snubbed.
Yeah, big influence, though.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
That's just
Idiotic.
idiotic.
I'm gonna say it's stupid to not have George Michael in there.
He's influential and he's a great entertainer, great songwriter. What's the problem?
I don't know. Gloria
It's probably
Estefan.
too controversial.
I guess. Who?
Gloria Estefan's not there. Graham Parsons.
That's dumb because as a solo artist and as a bird and as a flying burrito brother, what?
The Guess Who?
That's insane.
Harry Nilsson.
That's double insane.
insane, yeah.
In Excess, Iron Maiden.
In Excess is great rock. It's a great rock band.
They
Rock
started
guitars.
new wave, kind of.
Yeah,
Plus, you have to wonder, though, with this list, is it because these guys, some of them are not American, some of them Australian,
Yeah,
some of
that's
them
what I
are
think.
British?
Yeah.
But hold on, Iron Maiden. Jim Croce's not in there.
That's just dumb. I mean, I know he's kind of folky, but you let in Woody Guthrie,
Yeah, I was going to say.
King
Mr.
Crimson.
Folk. That's
Cool and the Gang should be there because if you put Parliament Funkadelic,
Yeah, really.
it's similar, right?
yeah.
Love.
Oh, they were a great band. They should
MC5.
be pretty controversial, but they should,
I don't know. It says the Monkeys aren't in there.
No, they're not because Winter hates them.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, you got a real problem with it.
Because prefab 4. Okay,
yeah, well, all these bands now were prefab.
No,
I'm
exactly.
almost
Yeah.
positive Motorhead is in there now.
After Lemmy Crout or something.
Well, I
right?
remember that there was a rumor. I'm not sure. Like, I've been
Unless they
followed.
didn't make it. Hold on, because they have them on this list here. I just want to see here.
Because we had a
Motorhead.
conversation about this a few years ago, and they weren't in at that point.
I think after Lemmy Croak, they brought some in. But
Probably,
I'm
yeah.
not quite. Usually there has to be an
He's not in-
exciting incident.
They're not on the. He's not on the. Randy Newman's on the list. He's in there.
Really?
Yeah. No. Motorhead, I don't see it on the list. So Motorhead right now is being snubbed. Motley Crue is snubbed. That's just kind of stupid.
Yeah. Again, you don't have to like them. It's a rock.
Maybe Tommy Lee slept with somebody's wife on the committee.
David Johansen is not there with the New York Dolls.
They should influence.
Ozzy's not in there.
That's one of the hugest omissions I can think of.
Pixies are not there.
They're pretty radical. Like I can see it, but I don't agree with it.
Procol Harum is not there.
That's just dumb.
Idiotic.
Yeah, it's like you don't know music history.
Rage Against the Machine, they're not there, but it's a lot of they're just too. I think they're just too political.
Yeah,
Probably, yeah.
The Runaways.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I can see that.
This one here, how do I pronounce it? Something in the Banshees. Shushi.
Susie.
But it's SIO.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
it's
kind of
Susie and the Banshees. Again, I know a guy that loved that band. I guess not. Whatever.
The Sonics not in.
That's stupid. Talk to Eddie Vedder about that.
Soundgarden's not there. Want to talk to Eddie about that one
really,
too?
Yeah, really.
Alice in Chains are not there. Want to talk to Eddie about that
Yeah,
one?
really.
Here's a surprise. Steppenwolf.
Really?
That's just, if you want a classic rock band, it doesn't get better.
Thin Lizzy, I thought, made it in there. Or did he get snubbed?
The boys are back in town. I don't know.
Three Dog Night.
Kind of like the Monkees. I can see why Winter would.
Tommy James and the Shondell.
That's dumb.
Tool. Fine. You want to leave them off for
I'm
a
not
bit.
Well, they're still in good shape, so they can still last
really.
another 10 years.
Weird Al Yankovic actually has been snubbed, but I don't know how you want to categorize the guy.
He's a novelty
A
act.
legend.
I'm okay with that.
If they put him in, I'm cool because it's kind of creative. Again, musical excellence, right? He takes a good song,
Actually,
takes the lyrics.
Yeah, you're right.
I guess so.
Because in some cases, his version was better known and made it so that the original got better sales.
After he did Like a Surgeon, Madonna did better with that song.
And I think Nirvana too.
Yeah.
Didn't
Cobain
Cobain?
loved it, man.
Yeah.
At first, he was kind of like on the thing. He called it. It was pretty good, actually.
I think it's when he saw the video, eh? Yeah.
And then Wu-Tang Clan, I figured just because of all the old school rappers that are in there, like Method Man and oh my god, now I'm drawing a blank, but all those guys that are in there.
Raza.
Yeah, like there's a whole bunch of good guys in there. So then someone asked me, you say, well, who do you want in to the Rock Hall of Fame? I said, okay, fine, I'm going to give them till 2025. Mm-hmm. This is who I want in. By 2025, I want these guys in the Rock Hall of Fame right away.
Or it's going to get ugly.
Bryan Adams has to go in there. I don't care what anybody says. Motley Crue has to go in there. Okay? Kenny Aronoff has to go in there because he's Hal Blaine 2.0. Okay?
I like that. Sure.
Yeah, nice.
The Guess Who has to go there.
I like, that's just so obvious.
And I want BTO there because I want Randy Bachman to bring his stupid guitar again.
Just to irritate me. Okay.
I need Ozzy there.
Yeah, that
Not
before
only you,
before
everybody
he
else.
croaks. Yeah.
The Runaways because they're smart and the eye candy is going to be great.
Okay.
In Excess,
That's obvious.
Iron Maiden,
Obvious.
George Michael,
Obvious.
Jim Croce,
Obvious.
and I figure Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf, yeah. Yeah, that's again obvious. I mean, why wouldn't you include
But plus, there's an argument to be made. Like, for example, if you let Whitney Houston in, you have to let Gloria Estefan in.
No, let's put that. She got in before Steppenwolf.
Well,
And this is
exactly,
a classic rock and roll hall. And Whitney Houston, like, what is the problem? Like,
Well, this is what bothers me because, I'm biased and Bryan Adams is my guy and I love his music. Yeah, okay, he got into ballads towards the end, but he already solidified his career. You argue saying, well, he did well with Cuts His Knife and Reckless back-to-back from start to finish albums. Great! U2 did it with the Joshua Tree. One album. That's all it took. Not saying U2's other stuff is not that good. I don't mind U2, but I still think their best album, and if you ask Bono, he'd be like, yeah, it's Joshua Tree. It's probably their best album. It's what solidified them in rock.
Yeah, I don't understand the method to their madness. I know I've read, ladies and gentlemen, enough articles criticizing the Hall of Fame. I've actually been there twice, and it is kind of cool when you go in. But this whole nomination winner thing is just goofy to me. I don't get it.
Because the board, they have Tom Morello, Questlove sits on the board of directors that votes on it. Dave Grohl sits on it.
Oh wow.
Okay, there was another name actually that slips my mind that is on it, but those are like 4 out of the 8 guys that are on there. So when Grohl was being put in with the Foo Fighters, what did he say? I'm going to use a hypothetical.
Yeah.
I love Dave Grohl. Everyone knows that. Okay, guys, I'm going to step outside for a minute. I'll be right back. You let me know what you want to do with my band if we're in or not.
Well, pretty well.
But then again, I don't know if the Roots are there.
Oh, good point.
If the Roots are there, because then again,
I hope not, because come on, the Roots beat Steppenwolf. The Roots beat Jim Crow. Really?
Like Brian Epstein is there. Andrew Luke Oldham is there. Linda Ronstadt made it. Obviously, the Eagles are in there. Like if you don't put
they
the
have
Eagles,
to be. That just
Faces is there.
good.
Chili Peppers are in, which is fine. Beastie Boys, I'm very happy that they're in, and it was kind of cool that they were inducted by Chuck D and LL Cool J.
Yeah, sure.
It's the guys of that era, right?
Yeah.
And the Beastie Boys just say, well, it's not rock. Hold on a second. They start off as punk. Then they merged to metal, to rap, they went with whatever the time was. Yeah. They went to alternative. They switched it around. They're very, I don't know,
diverse.
Versatile.
Yeah, exactly.
They could do anything. And I don't know, like I have nothing against the association. I understand you want to please everybody, and I eventually will probably put Taylor Swift in there when she's at 25 years of music service, right? But at the end of the day, this is I don't get it.
No,
and it just boggles my mind. And I'll fine tune an article and we'll post it on our website.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You know what?
So
that's Kennedy's rant.
Well, I'm glad that the Velvets made it. It makes me feel more comfortable as I kind of close this one up. This is from All Music, and they wrote, quote, "Few rock groups can claim to have broken so much new territory and maintain such consistent brilliance on record as the Velvet Underground during their brief lifespan. Their innovations blended the energy of rock and avant-garde vibes and introduced a new degree of social realism and sexuality into rock lyrics. They were too abrasive for the mainstream to handle. They sure were. The group's first 4 albums were included in Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. The group was ranked the 19th greatest artist by the same magazine and the 24th greatest artist by a poll by VH1. So what are we to make of it all? Well, in modern day parlance, the Velvets were massive influencers. They really did alter rock music. More than the Beatles? I personally doubt it, but close. But importantly, there is no other band that is in between the two. Now that is food for thought. This is Dr. Clarke. Thanks for listening, and you can consider yourself just a little bit smarter. And we'll make you even smarter with a vinyl review, maybe.
Thank you, sir. That's a nice intro.
Oh, hello.
The music at night, it sounds bright on Wheeler's turntable. He shines a light, he keeps his vinyl in sight, and gives you his magnificent review. Now here's a clue we have for you. It's time for Wheeler's Vinyl Review.
I decided to go the same route as you because you inspired me with the Velvet Underground. So I decided to go with one of these other bands who, not necessarily the most popular, especially not in their time, but extraordinarily impactful on other musicians and what was coming. So I decided to review You Can't Buy a Thrill by Steely Dan.
Sure.
Which was, at that point, they weren't the Steely Dan that we now know, really. They were more of a pickup studio band. Fagan, at that point, was considered a failed staff composer.
Oh, wow.
So it gives you an idea of what kind of mindset he was in. Oh, by the way, the one I'm reviewing here is the UHQR release. So these are the big box sets that you sometimes see At the record stores, for our listeners in Canada, they're usually over $100. Our
that's
listeners
true.
in the States, they're usually between 60 and 80.
Makes sense.
And these things are on incredibly silent vinyl, and they are usually, and in this case, taken from the original master tapes. These are incredible songs that were extraordinarily experimental. They're borderline jazz, actually, at this point.
They're difficult to play. If you look for the musicians out there, look at the charts on some of Steely Dan songs. It's not CFG. Like, these guys are really just jazz orchestrations.
Exactly.
A lot of it.
I have to say, for those of you who want me to tell you right away, is it really worth it? I'll say yes, but I'll put this in quotation. The original record, the original pressing, which if you have to look for a code, it's ABCX. So the original American pressing sounds very good as well. I would avoid every other pressing that you'll find. Even the Speaker's Corner, they're extraordinarily overdone, most of these. So this actually sounds really amazing. They boosted the bass, and the sound ticks have been removed. Some people will say this is sacrilegious. It just makes it much more enjoyable.
Because it's Steely Dan. That's
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Ricky, don't lose.
They had a mate. They've always known. They used to call them the stereo tester records.
Exactly.
Because they're so good. When you went into a shop, anyway, this is in Toronto, they'd always be George Benson's Breezin' or Steely Dan, because they could make a terrible record setup, a system rather sound great. They were that good.
Good.
Ricky, don't lose.
So in this case, if you put it on your turntable, you'll actually have to crank it up, but this is a good thing. Like, unlike the original pressing, this you want to crank up because it's a very silent pressing.
What does that mean? Like like they compressed it, or
No, in this case, it's just that the original they had to boost the bass because of this is the
see.
70s, like bad quality.
which creates more noise?
Exactly. So
Okay.
in this case, it made it much more silent. But some people will say, "Oh well, you have to boost the volume up to 11," kind of thing.
Yeah, right,
But-
right, good. Oh, yeah.
But in this case, it's actually worth it because with a lot of jazz records, you want to boost the volume and play around maybe with your bass and treble
Yeah.
on your. The packaging at UHQR is, as usual, very high quality. You have a little booklet that comes with it with Fagan's comments. Really worth it. And like Dr. Clarke said, this is a miracle worker for any sound system. But if you have a decent one, it's really up there.
Good.
So music-wise, I'd say it's a 4 out of 5. Sound-wise, it's the same thing. It's a 4 out of 5. And if you're still on the fence, it's mastered and produced by Bernie Grunman. So if you talk with your record store owners, they'll tell you usually a Grunman production is usually synonymous with quality. So you have a really good record here. I just have to warn you though, although it's a 200 gram vinyl, it's a 45 RPM. So you have to put your remember to put your turntable at 45, not at 30.
So it's 200 grams spinning at 45. That sounds going to be amazing.
Exactly.
The faster you go, the better. I'm waiting for 78s to come back on 200 vinyl. Can you imagine the sound? You know, it'd just be so fantastic. Well, thank you.
Wheeler, I want to ask you something.
Go
you know how
ahead.
you say it's something you always recommend for people to put on their turntable. Obviously, you know, what if I don't want to put it on my turntable and I don't want to listen to it? Does it bother you?
No. Open the window, remove the bug screen, and just throw it out as a frisbee.
You should listen to it. No, what if I didn't want to? I don't have nothing against Steely Dan. I want to be a little bit sarcastic today because, you know, it's a good humor day, or it's a nice day outside. It's what, spring weather here.
Kinda, yeah.
I love it. But I just want to say, like, I don't want to put on my turntable. Not
Well,
that album. Something else.
Well, then don't listen to a vinyl review. You're in the wrong group. Well, thank you very much for that. Much appreciated.
Fantastic. Actually, the Steely, putting all joking aside, Steely Dan does have some solid albums, and the fact that they did a 200 gram on 45.
Whoa! Like it doesn't get better.
I like that it's heavy.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah.
Spinning at 45 is a drag, but still amazing. Put on the headphones.
So it's about as heavy as 4 vinyls. Remember the 4 vinyls that let you had you hold them?
No,
Oh,
those were K-Tel. One K-Tel was about 19 grams, and so you could just stack them or use them as pizza platters.
And you could see light through it.
Pretty well.
And they weren't transparent.
And they faded out on hits. So Hey Jude is about 19 seconds long. Like I don't know how they got away with it, but they did.
Mass production, my friend.
I know, out of Winnipeg. Okay, man, thanks. That's it for today, as far as I know.
That's all we got. So I'm Kennedy saying sayonara.
I'm Dr. Ian Clarke saying see you soon.
And Wheeler saying adios.
Bye-bye.